Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm super excited for this episode. Again, we travel all over town in our marketplaces to interview the top real estate professionals in our field, realtors, lenders, builders, developers, essentially getting an insight, what inspires them, what moves them or motivates them, and really separates them to that top level, what I like to consider the real estate titans. I am your host, Greg Fowler, and our very, very special guest today and our real estate titan is Rob Henderson. Rob, thanks so much for stopping by the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely honored to be here.
Great. And just so everybody knows, too, again, we do this Tuesday afternoons and Friday afternoons, a different Titan in a different environment. So we are in Rob's environment today. It's really exciting. Great office, by the way, Rob. This is really great space, for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we're going to dive right in, a series of questions we'll just kind of go through here. So I guess, Rob, tell everybody out there a little bit about yourself.
Well, like many of us, I didn't start off wanting to be a real estate agent. I was involved in the energy field back in the mid-'80s. I was a geologist,
Wow.
and that business tanked. So there was no opportunities in that. So I did what a lot of people do when they're unemployed. I went back to college.
Okay, makes sense.
So I went to get my master's degree in geophysics, hoping that field would come about and get me back into the oil industry. And while I was there, I had to pay for it.
Right.
Well, so I was bartending, I was working in a liquor store, I was doing teaching assisting stuff, and I was also going in the grad program.
Okay.
Well, shocking as this would be, I met a realtor when I was bartending.
Wow, small
Realtors never go to bars.
That never happens. No one out there really does that.
So anyway, I met one of the top owners of a real estate company. This was in Amherst, Massachusetts. And he kind of took me under his wing and said, you should look into doing this part-time. I got my license. This was in 1986. And here I am 32 years later.
That's incredible.
At this. I never got back into geology, and frankly, if I had waited, it probably would have been another 10 years before I would have been able to do it.
And you don't regret it, right, Rob? I mean, you love it.
No, I love it. I mean,
years.
I'm very fortunate. I think a lot of times people bounce around, but I just kind of found something that worked for me. My wife and I relocated here to Colorado Springs 21 years ago.
Wow.
From Rhode Island, so I'm an East Coaster.
Okay.
And
Love that.
and we have one child, 16-and-a-half-year-old daughter. So that's kind of a little bit back on me.
That's incredible. And so, 20 plus years in Colorado Springs, I'm sure you've seen a lot of change out there, Rob, not just, the general economy, but the growth in real estate and just the movement, right?
Oh, everything that's happened here is amazing. I think, I was driving today. I had an appointment before this, and driving out and looking at the growth that's going on. Things like Memorial Hospital putting in the children's wing of that, and seeing all the things that are happening here. When we moved here 21 years ago, it was hard to find a restaurant, let alone anything to do social. And now you can go downtown, and there's a vibrant downtown.
Sure.
It's just really amazing to see, especially in the last 5 years,
right,
what's happened to Colorado Springs. I mean, I think we're privileged to be working in such an amazing place. And we made a very wise decision coming here a long time ago.
Love it, Rob. Okay, so going into it, I guess the next question, kind of tailing off of that, getting into the business, but what's your why, Rob? I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What really motivates you, to be at the level that you're at for doing this as long as you have?
Well, I have a great alarm clock. I have 2 dogs that wake us up at 6:30 in the morning, so that's my alarm clock.
There's some truth for everybody. That's what gets Rob going.
But truthfully, I have found I really enjoy helping people.
Okay.
Not just in this profession, but also volunteering and things that I do for the community. But we have an opportunity in this business to help people at a level that they're vulnerable, they're stressed, and I love being able to be in a position to help people make that change. We're always dealing with people in change. They have, whether it's a divorce or death in a family or a new child coming into their lives, right there.
I'm excited. Very excited.
Things like that, when they're changing, they're under stress. And I love the fact that we can participate in those things and be given such big responsibilities. And I enjoy helping people get through that.
That's big.
That's my why.
And that motivates a lot of people out there. I know that a lot of real estate professionals will resonate with that, but not everybody is in it for that particular reason, Rob. I mean, everybody has their driver, and to give back to our clients and really make them become friends. I remember this is a conversation you and I had a while ago, but talking about your sphere and the people that you work with in the past, and they can pick up the phone, you can pick up the phone, and you know what's happening in their life, and if you need to help them, it's nothing to do with real estate. You're helping them with their lives. If somebody's looking for a job, if somebody's needing something of any form or fashion, you're that go-to, that kind of dot connector in their lives with other people. I thought that was big too, Rob.
My mother-in-law said this a long time ago, and I think it's a Yiddish word, but she used it in British terminology. There's a word called maven, and maven was somebody in a small village in England that you'd go to, and they would have answers. And I think that's what we do. We provide solutions to people on all sorts of levels, whether they need a plumber or they need a recommendation for something or whether they need somebody to talk to. I think that's really, that again is kind of the core value of what I work for. And being relied on for that. Relationships
and cultivating that.
Absolutely.
You hit it, Rob. I love it. So let me go on to the next question here, kind of for everybody else, because I think this is what a lot of real estate professionals are tuning into is trying to get insight or inspiration from the real estate titans on this show.
Sure.
So I guess if you could look back on your career thus far, Rob, could you pinpoint one or two things that you did or started doing that really just accelerated your business to another level?
Yeah, I absolutely can pin it down to becoming a ninja.
Okay.
So, not to market anything that somebody's doing out there, but Larry Kendall from the group has a sales organization called Ninja Selling.
Shout out to everybody in Ninja world.
Anybody who's a ninja, that's go ninjas, because it's a really critical thing. And I did that about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And going back to when I got into it for economics.
Okay.
I needed a career path to pay bills.
Sure.
But like everybody, I think at some point. But that change was significant in how to have a new understanding of how I'm working with people. I think I've used this word with you before. I treat my clients as my flock.
Yes.
And and I like using that word, and I'm now comfortable enough to be saying that with people that I work with.
Right.
I tell them after closing, by the way, you're part of my flock. I'm not going away unless you kick me out.
I love it.
So it's something that I really enjoy doing, and the ninja selling piece has made a huge difference.
Okay.
I'm a part of a ninja group. I practice it every day. I do everything that I can do to improve using their system, and it has been a game changer. And it has really grounded me to understanding exactly what we do.
Okay, and that's big too. And there's a lot of real estate professionals that'll swear by the Ninja program. There's several people that I've talked to that have gone into it, had great success, maybe tapered back a little bit, and then all of a sudden they said, "What changed this year? Oh, shoot! I stopped getting to the fundamentals, the basics."
Yep.
I was talking to a buddy of mine, and this was months ago. And he broke it down really neat. He went out to a conference in Vegas. Shout out to Jeremy if you're watching this. You know this is about you. So he came back from a conference, and I said, "Hey, Jeremy, what was something you really took from the conference?" And he said there was a speaker on there, and they were talking about top professionals and what they do and what they pay attention to. And everybody throws this term around, get back to the basics.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the true professionals never leave the basics. And I thought that was so strong. So if you look back at what really works for you, keep it up, be consistent. So I think that speaks volumes too, Rob.
It is having a system in place. The second piece of this, which I would say is really critical as well, having a business plan.
Okay.
The Ninja program actually supplies that as a part of what you do. Mine's 25 pages long.
Wow.
And it analyzes everything from my personal life to free time to scheduling time to playing golf to business modeling as well. And that's actually fundamental to I think a lot of businesses, but obviously making sure that you plan for time for yourself as well is really important. But having that business plan is, I think, absolutely critical. So those are two things that I had kind of done previously, but the business plan now is a part of it that I do every year. Actually do a retreat. We do a company retreat, and at our retreat, there's a number of us that are ninjas, and we actually do our business plans together.
Wow, fantastic.
And it takes a while because you analyze everything that you're doing.
Okay.
Every single piece of business that you're doing, everything that you're doing in your life. it's out on the table and it's analyzed.
I love it. All right, lots of information in there, so hopefully everybody's taking notes. That was great, Rob, for sure. So here's something that's a little bit more personal, but everybody kind of wants to get a window into Rob and your background and what makes you a Titan. So everybody deals with challenges in their lives, and a lot of times it's good, in life, and everybody can deal with it. But when things are hard, that's what really separates the top professionals, the top people in this world, to really overcome that. So, Rob, if you could pick a specific challenge that you've been through in your life that you overcame that made you a stronger man, what might that be, if any?
It occurred. I was a quasi-professional race car driver.
Ah, okay.
Quasi.
I didn't know that, Rob.
And I was involved in a very serious racing accident, and it put me in a very tough position for recovery. It was a long recovery, a lot of broken parts of my body. Anyway, and that recovery period, you reflect on things that you've done on your life. But it took me a long time to get through that. It was about an 18-month recovery from start to finish. And I still suffer from the effects of that. They will never go away in some cases. But I always look at somebody else and what they're going through in their life, remembering that what happened to me, so that I can be empathetic to them.
Sure.
So it was a big thing to get through it, and it cost me economically. It was a very difficult time in my life, and I look back on it, and as strange as this is going to sound, it was a good event in my life. It didn't feel like that when it happened.
Sure.
But now that I'm further away from it and feel the impacts on the positive side of the people I've met, people that helped me through that, it really did make a difference. And it was again a challenge. And I look back and go, anything that I have for a difficult day now, I look back at that and go, this is not bad.
It's not so bad. It's not so bad.
So it gave me some grounding there as well. So, but that's something that I think did help me. But it took a long time to get through it.
Sure, but Rob, that's a great example of a challenge you dealt with, but you overcame, and you came out stronger from that, and it's a mindset.
Yes,
right.
I
mean, you could have looked at it as say, poor me, I'm in the hospital, and this is really bad, and I'm not discounting that.
Right.
But you said, you know what? Hey, it's rough. Everybody deals with tough things. I'm going to get over this, and I'm gonna learn from this situation and be stronger, be better.
In the middle of the storm, it was difficult to see that, but as I got away from it, yes, it was definitely a good experience for me.
Okay,
it really was.
Well, yeah, thanks for sharing, Rob. That's not always easy to do. So
emotional on that one. I didn't realize I was going to do that.
No, I hear you. Hey, everybody, appreciate that. Rob, is sharing this information. So here's a lighter question for everybody out there, and this is a kind of a fun one to kind of get away from that. So, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger version and say, hey, young Rob, and give a piece of advice, personally, professionally, what would you give that piece of advice to yourself?
I think there'd be two things, actually.
Okay.
First off, don't take yourself so seriously.
Okay.
But I think the more important one is that failure is a part of life.
Wow.
And we all have failures, and I have... I think as a part of growing up and getting older is you realize that's a part of life. I don't think people get better at things if you don't have failure. I mean,
Sure.
Who's going to innovate anything?
Right.
If something works perfectly and you don't fix it, then that's how it's going to be for the rest of eternity. So I think when you have failure, it's almost a survival thing.
Right.
That you're going to have to... You got to put food on the table. You have to go out and do these. You have to do things to sustain your life.
Right.
So I think looking back and going, these things that were failures, and that's actually a little bit of what I went through with the accident.
Okay.
Was I'm a failure. I had this track, and these are the things I lost, and I now realized those were just part of learning.
Sure.
And I think that's actually been very critical. So
Okay.
I would love to tap myself on the shoulder and say it's okay to be unsuccessful at times.
Right.
I read a book about Walt Disney years and years ago.
Okay.
I mean, he went bankrupt and failed so many times that it was amazing. But he had this vision, and he just kept going with the vision.
Right.
So that's that positive outlook on stuff.
I agree with that. The failure portion. I mean, people will kill to take their kids to Disneyland. I
Yeah.
mean, for all that failure all the time. I mean, it's funny that way. But
Yeah.
you look at Edison.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of inventors and creators that they've tried tens of thousands of times to perfect something, and if they were to stop that one time before,
exactly,
they just never would have reached that one spot.
Right.
You know, you have to know when to move on and be realistic, but ultimately, if you have a dream and you have a goal, do what you need to do to make it happen.
I used to play baseball. I love baseball,
Okay.
and if I concentrated on the 70% of the time I missed the ball, probably wouldn't. And it's like, but I concentrated on the 30% that I did, and that's a lot of what life is about.
It's beautiful.
Just concentrating on the right stuff.
Oh, that's awesome, Rob. No, that's more great advice for everybody out there. Okay, so kind of going into, you mentioned a book that you're reading, so that's kind of into the next question here. What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to, or influencers you might be following on social media that really, motivate you?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I really love is that I've now moved away from trying to read books.
Right.
We get home at, after a long day of doing this and a stressful day, and I decompress, have dinner with the family, do those kinds of things, have a personal life, and I found that I would fall asleep 3 minutes into a page or 2 pages in a book, and I just had to stop. I've got one book I've been reading for a year now.
Okay.
And I was like, I gave up on that. So now I'm actually listening to books on tape in the car.
Okay.
And I've got one I'm listening to right now. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a 4-letter word, fill it in, bleep. And it's
great.
written by this guy who's a blogger who has really interesting ideas. And it isn't that I just don't care.
Sure.
It's about reevaluating what life is about to be happy.
Right.
And it's really fascinating. And he takes a very different track on life, in that to be happy, it isn't, obviously we talk about this all the time, it isn't the personal things. It isn't the car, the suit, the house.
Sure.
So what is it? And actually going back to accepting failure is actually, this really hit it home.
Yeah, sure.
When I was analyzing what I wanted to look and do for 2018, that was part of what I want to do. How can I get more successful and understand how to be a better person?
Love it.
And this one just kind of fell on me, and it's been great. I'm about halfway through it, and it's actually funny too.
Awesome.
This guy's
Love
hilarious.
it. Love it.
A little vulgar, by the way. So if you're,
hence the title,
Yeah, it's like,
that's-
so we kind of go with that. But
Right.
that's actually something I just started doing, and also doing TED Talks.
Okay, wonderful.
I love TED Talks. You can find anything for anything that you're working on, and go through those talks in a very short amount of time. I think they're just invaluable. They're really amazing.
I agree with that 100%. And there's a lot of good information out there. I will be putting the books and or podcasts or books on tape. See, the funny thing is I still call them books on tape.
I do too.
And so I remember growing up just traveling throughout the country, and we go on road trips as families, and there would be a physical cassette tape.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be the Time Machine or something along those lines, or the Invisible Man. Now they're podcasts, they're MP3, the whole nine.
Well, now they have things on Spotify as well. I don't
Yes.
know if you have Spotify, but they
sure.
now have books on tape. Well, again, books
on tape. They know.
Yeah.
But I'll put links in the comments or description below so everybody has access to that, just in case if they want that information from Rob. All right, so last question, and then we're all wrapped up here. Rob, what's your mantra, or what quotes do you live by if you could sum up your brand that way?
Absolutely, what you focus on expands. That is the premier saying for ninjas. So if you are, I'm really working on playing golf better, trying anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Taking lessons, doing all the things for that. If I think I'm gonna shoot a bad score, I will. If I'm concentrating and think I'm gonna have a great round, I do that as well. So be careful where you put your head, because that's what it is. If you are focusing on the negative in your world, your work, whatever happens to be, I don't think I'm going to get this listing appointment, you won't. If you go in with a positive attitude, a winning attitude, then that will make a difference in how you do it. Simple words, but they've worked for me. They've worked for me for the last couple of years, and they'll work for you too.
That's big, Rob. And again, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy, Rob, for being on the show. I'm sure everybody out there appreciates, Rob taking the time. And, we are going to be, live every single Tuesday and every single Friday afternoon around 2 to 3 o'clock time frame with another Real Estate Titan. But, Rob, thanks again. Seriously, so much for your time and everything there.
Absolutely my pleasure, my friend.
All right. We'll catch everybody on the next one. See you later.
It's time for happy hour.